Hello, how are you? I'm doing this video kind of early today. Um, I wanted to make a video dealing with protests. Of course, everyone knows there is a lot of protests happening, and I see the same thing happening with this protest that happened with the last big protest, big global protest, the Black Lives Matter protest. And so I think I need to explain what the purpose of protest is, what I see happening, and why the Palestinian people, if this goes the way our protest did, are going to end up losing. The purpose of protest is for the masses to warn or to speak to the ruling class. And usually you protest when the people the ruling class pick to manage society are not doing their job. The gatekeepers, the managers, the clerks that we call politicians. You go and you say, we are done with this. We want to change, and it could be X behavior. And you usually will give them an alternative. We want this to stop now. It could be anything. Or we want more of, insert here, whatever you want to put. Then, so protest is basically a direct warning to the ruling class. But if you're protesting, it's the warning. If things don't stop, the next thing is we are going to disrupt all social activity, or at least big chunks of it, as much as we can, so that you really don't have no society to rule. Because part of the ruling class is you're ruling over something that's actually functioning. And when ruling class ignores that, then it's time to change who the ruling class is. And that could take many forms. It could be violence. It could be you just run inside where these people live. You pull them out, throw them in the middle of the street, and say, no more. And if you don't think that can happen, remember, police officers and law enforcement are actually closer to the masses of the people in the street than they are the ruling class. Even if they don't believe it, they are. And if you were really protesting and going through these steps, by the time you got to that point, the breakdown would be so bad that you wouldn't have any police force to protect you. Now, you might have some drones, so you might be technically savvy, so that might be a problem. But at that point, the ruling class is gonna give in, because what's the point in ruling when you're living behind a wall and all you could trust is drones to go out and do things and come back in? And then you're going to assume that people are not going to break the drones. Well, you can arm the drones, but then what are you ruling? You're ruling the drones, I guess? It's not as much fun for them, right? So while in the protest for Black Lives Matter, well, let's get to this before we get to that. What people have done, like everything else in this society, we have made, or human beings have made protesting something other than what it actually is. So they ignore the concept of protesting, what it means, what its purpose is, and they protest to be seen. They protest to make a lot of noise. They protest to be on the right side of history, so that when things are different or things collapse and get restarted or whatever happens, they could say, oh, I protested with them. See, I wasn't a bad guy, or I wasn't a bad woman. I protested with them, but nothing changed. Well, we tried. No, that's not the purpose for protest. Not to say you was there, and not to take selfies and video for your social media. That's not what protesting is for. It's okay to do that, because that helps build protests if you're using social media and video. But the purpose of protest is to warn the ruling class. We've turned it into something else that is not protest. When you see all these people on the street, if nothing is changing and they're still on the street day after day, it's not protest anymore. So when Black Lives Matter, George Floyd was killed in one of the most brutal ways. Me personally, I was like, yeah, we're killed like that every day. Black men are always killed like that. But like my ex-wife said, yeah, but people were home and forced to watch it. I said, okay, all right. She's right, but, and that's why you knew that protest wasn't gonna last, because if you're that disengaged with reality that you have to be forced to see what happens every day, and that's the only way you could be moved, you're probably not gonna push. You're probably not gonna protest and then disrupt and then be committed at that level. So people were home, they were forced to watch it, they saw it, they said this is cruel. You can't keep treating black people like this. Then all the studies that people have been doing for years started coming to the fore. Oh, black people are this. Black people can't get jobs. Black people getting redlined still. Black people, they have no schools. Schools are like prisons. Black people are going to prison. They're getting extra time. Black people sit in jail because they don't have bail money. Come to find out they've been picked up for no reason, but they've been now in jail for a year, which means they've served time for no reason, just because they didn't have money to get bail and they were waiting for a judge. There's not enough judges, so the court dockets are full. Then people say, oh, this is horrible, it's horrible, horrible, we got to do something. Everybody was protesting. Black Lives Matter, they held this kind of chants. And meanwhile, the protest was, stop killing unarmed black people. They were killing unarmed black people while people were in the street. So the behavior wasn't changing. You protested, you made your demands clear, behavior never changed. You kept protesting, behavior wasn't changing. So then you knew these people are not serious, because they're not going to go to the next level. They're not going to disrupt society. In actuality, the society was disrupted anyway because the ruling class was doing the Great Reset, but it wasn't because we were protesting. And black men were dying then, before then, during the protest. And when everybody went back home and had enough pictures and enough video to say, I was protesting with the people in the street there, so don't blame me when things don't change. Black men are still dying. And now white people are dying because mass shootings are happening every week. So everybody's just dying. So I'm not sure you can even call that protest. I guess the first few days it was protest. But once the act didn't stop and you didn't go forward, it's not a protest. Right? Because you're not there to warn the ruling class that you want the things to stop. Even though you're chanting, you want to say the Black Lives Matter and you want this killing to stop. You really don't care if the killing stops or not. Because if they cared, they would have done something. Now the whole world is protesting for the Palestinians. Again, Palestinians have been being treated like this for 75 years. They were treated like that when I was a child. I remember them fighting, trying to get a two-state solution. When I go back to Arafat, when he was there, and Arafat made one of the Jewish presidents shake his hand on press because they were live, and he reached his hand out across. And I don't remember if Bill Clinton was president then, but I remember this happening. And the Jewish president had to shake his hand. And I think that Jewish president got flack when he went back to Israel. Oh, you touched his hand, you touched that Arafat, you touched it. So that's how ridiculous it's been. And I was a teenager then, 18, 19, 20. I was a young man. It's 30-something years ago for me. They've been suffering like this for 75 years. Now everybody's up in arms. This is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You're bombing hospitals. You're killing children. Israel's killing children. This just needs to stop. We need a ceasefire. Meanwhile, Israel's still bombing Gaza and the West Bank and everywhere else. Israel's just bombing. We're protesting, they're bombing. We tell them to stop, they're bombing. And I'm afraid that at the end of the day, what's going to happen is once Israel just bombs everything, they're going to do a ceasefire. Of course, you're going to do a ceasefire. There's nothing left to bomb. So the protest is going to be meaningless. Then you're going to stop because you're going to say, well, there was a ceasefire. Yeah, well, everything's bombed. Everything's rubble. So there's a ceasefire. And then if there's a two-state solution after that, then maybe you could say it was worth it to a degree. But then who builds it back up? American contractors? Do they come in? Because then now you're set for a whole nother kind of abuse. And that's what I hope does not happen to the Palestinian people. Because, like I said, they've been suffering all my life. I'm 52 years old. And I'll be dead soon. And I would like that suffering stops. But then my people have been suffering centuries. And in the United States, and our suffering still hasn't stopped. So it would be nice if somebody's suffering stopped. I just want to see it. And if I can hang on long enough to see it, would be nice. That's all I wanted to say. Trying to cut these videos down. And support the channel. Hit the links. Until next time, please take care of yourselves and be safe. It's so rough out there. And the weather is doing weird things. So you have to protect yourself from nature and the unnatural human behavior. Take care and be safe.